Welcome back. Let me show you 3 things about .NET Aspire. The built-in control panel to manage your resources, observability with logs, traces and metrics, and the code-first approach with full IntelliSense support. Let's start with simply clicking and running the solution. It will open up the console and it will pop up the entire dashboard. You already seen that, and this is our control panel, and it's very powerful. And why is that? First of all, we can see all the APIs and resources that we created in our app host program CS, so our main point. And let's see what is possible. We can see here that all our resources are running, from which source they are coming, on which URLs they are running as well, and available actions. So as you can see, I can stop this resource. And this is already powerful because I can manage from this point a state of certain resource. Let me stop this. And let's take a look. I stopped event bus from Aspire dashboard. So it is really an orchestrator. And I see already that something is happening with my APIs. They are reporting errors. And already state is different, has changed to running unhealthy. And probably in a second it will be unhealthy or failed, something like that. And we can see more and more errors that are being reported in those APIs. And let's see what's going on. I see a lot of errors in here. So from this point, I can see the errors, the logs, and so on. Let me go back. Let me start again this resource, and these APIs should go back to normal. Okay, and they are back to normal. However, they still have persistent errors reported here, but we'll take a look in a second what's going on. So from this point, I can start, I can stop resources. This is my control panel. What else we have? Let's see the graph. We see the graph, which is, very good looking, and it can represent in a graphical way our entire system. And it can also represent the dependencies between each container, each service. So as we can see, hovering over the Postgres database can indicate us what resources are using Postgres. So I know from now that ordering DB, catalog DB, identity DB, and so on are using Postgres. We also have the console logs. We see here resources and many APIs, many resources. Let's take a look on the web app. What do we see here? We already see that some failures happened, and we accept that. I'm going to go to resources. I do not know exactly what kind of URL it is, so I'm going to click here, online store. It will open up for me. Awesome. So now we have the console. I'm clicking web app, and I see here nothing changes because no one uses it except for me. Let's click this adventure GPS watch. I will click this, and we see here more logs coming in. Of course, the more calls do, the more logs I have. Awesome. But what in a situation when I want to see multiple logs at the same time? I have this all resources, so I can see to what kind of APIs it's calling, and it's very useful. So I can see here that I call the web app here, in here, received HTTP response headers, and then executed attempt, and then catalog API responded. So let's take a look on a more complex scenario. I have clicked somewhere, and I want to know what kind of APIs have responded to this call or were processing my request directly or indirectly, right? Because this kind of call is rather simple. It's simple call to catalog API. Catalog API is just responding me back. But what happens if I'm, let's say, logging in, I'm clicking here, Alice, and pass $123, right? Even with the exception on the way. Let's have a look. I'm adding this to the shopping bag. So now it's not so evident what kind of APIs have responded to me. Let me check out. So I'll show you something more complex, because in here we did a couple of things. We did post item, we got the cart, we did the checkout, and also in the background we have the order processor, which I haven't directly called. It's running in the background and it's processing the orders. So here I have the status submitted, and I suspect that after I will refresh, something will happen. Or maybe it needs time. As you can see, in here we already have this post trace, and it contains a lot of information. Let's take a look in here. So this is a trace. A trace consists of multiple spans. So this is the entire operation, and these are the spans. So now we know if we did something to the application, now we can see and investigate what happened as we were doing certain operations. So from this point, from the structure logs, it will be difficult to hop around the logs, and I do not know the interlinks between certain logs, because if there are many users, the logs are probably unreadable. I would need to go and search through certain request ID or some trace ID if I needed to understand what's going on. However, the interlinks between services make it pretty hard to understand what's going on in our system. So that's why the traces comes in. So if we take a look on this get users order, we can understand, we can see what was going on. We had a web application, we called basket API, and then we called ordering API. And I can understand then what I did in the system. And what else do we have except for traces? Choose the metrics. Let's choose from resources, and let's take maybe basket API. And I see here request duration. I don't see here anything. Let's see, maybe last 15 minutes. We see here that it took half of a second, and in here it was incredibly fast. We can also see count, but yeah, I think you get the point. It's the place where you can see your metrics. You can see many KPIs which you can track. You can get down to things that are rather complex to get from your normal setup. So CPU time, CPU count, exceptions over time. So it's pretty cool what you can do here, and you can basically examine your entire distributed system in one place. When I'm thinking about .NET Aspire, this is the deployment first approach. So the developer writes its own code, and he thinks already about deployment and development at the same time. However, in the regular way, developer thinks about development, and probably DevOps thinks about deployment, two separate platforms, two separate technologies, and .NET Aspire thinks of it as one. So developer knows the best what kind of resources it needs. So what I want is a Redis, Even Bus, and Postgres as the base containers that I'll be using. And I can state what kind of images I need, what kind of extensions I want. So I want also Postgres Web and admin to be running. And also with a lifetime, I can state that I want it per session, so it will die after I close Visual Studio, or I want a persistent, so it will be running even after I close Visual Studio. I can state whatever databases I need inside the Postgres server, and also I can specify APIs. So APIs, I can state the references, which is needed to inject the connection strings and also to show in the UI what kind of resources we use. And also I can do, and this is very powerful, I can use wait for method, and it will enforce that the basket API will wait for RabbitMQ till it's fully healthy and fully running. Why? Because I do not want to basket API to run before it's up, because it will be all the time failing. Yeah. So I can manage the order of the build. So this is awesome. I can also I can inject some in environment variables and code first approach. I can do some relationships. So I want identity API HTTP address, so it will be my environment variable. The best thing about .NET Aspire is that it's strongly typed, and when I'm typing it, I will not make too many mistakes, and I can just type certain method at Kafka, and it will just be there, and not to create a Docker compose files and so on. But yeah, let's focus on creating the Kafka. So I want Kafka, and I'm just writing a variable builder.addKafka, but it's not going to be here. Why? Because I need to add a NuGet. So let me go to NuGet packages. Let me write aspire.hosting. And find Kafka. Maybe let's write it like this, Kafka. Let's install it. Okay, and now, as you can see, I already have IntelliSense. So now I can name it. I just want to name it Kafka. Okay, and now let's run the app host solution. And what I'm expecting that it will contain my Kafka container and also all the rest. Okay, and here is the entire dashboard, and we can see the state starting, and the rest isn't healthy. I think they are just spinning up. Let's wait for Kafka. Okay, it's starting to, and voila, we have added Kafka to our system. So that's the end. Thank you for watching this. If you like this type of content, let me know. If you have a feedback, please also let me know. I want to improve my videos all the time, so your feedback is very important to me. And yeah, hit subscribe button if you like this, and see you around.